Hey guys, Probable1701 here, and today we are going to be looking at Midnight from Series 4 of Doctor Who. Now, for people who are familiar with my channel, you will know that I have never really cared for Midnight. I've always thought it's Tennant's most overrated episode and one of Doctor Who's most overrated episodes. I've never really liked it, and I haven't gone back and rewatched it in a long time because I had a lot of frustrations with it. I even have a video called Why I uh, just adamantly can't stand Midnight or something to that effect. But I did do a rewatch because it felt time, especially since I'm just not quite as much of a Tennant fanboy as I was for a long time. He was my solid number 2 Doctor for a long time. And now that he's kind of more middling in my list, I figured I'd approach it with fresh eyes and see what I thought. And now to start off, if you think I'm suddenly going to be like, oh my goodness, Midnight is so amazing, everyone was right all along, this isn't going to be that. However, it does good things and bad things. And I was having trouble formulating it in my head, so unlike most reviews, I actually did write down an outline of stuff I want to talk about. It's the brainy specs. First off, the episode is visually impressive. It's very well directed. I love how well directed the story is. Everything looks nice. I love a lot of the shots. I love the way the landscape looks on the Diamond Planet. I love how tiny the interior of this little carrier is. It's not like a big train or something. It's like a small little cargo thing. I love how cramped in it is. It really adds to the claustrophobia and the tension of the episode. And the episode does that as well. It's atmospheric without being like creepy atmospheric most of the time. It's still creepy, but it's different than, say, Eve of the Daleks, which is also very atmospheric and well shot and uses lighting and camera angles well. This episode also does that in a different way, and it does a really good job of building tension in scenes. I really like when they just hear the banging on the door, the doom doom, doom doom, and even the Doctor's like, knock knock, which is exactly what it feels like, something knocking, trying to get in. And then when somebody knocks 3 times, it repeats it. When the Doctor knocks 4 times, it repeats it. And you hear it moving around, and you sense the tension building and the fear mounting. Or even at the beginning, when the Doctor's talking with the pilot and the mechanic mechanic kind of sees something move. I don't actually know if you can see anything. There's a couple times when the camera pans over to the scenery when he's talking about he thinks he sees something. I don't even know if I see anything. Like, I looked, I'm like, is it just him seeing it? Can we see it? I don't know if the movement's actually there or not, which is really good directing. I actually like that. Because even Tennant's like, what did you see? It's an interesting setup. I also really like how well acted this is. 5 stars to all of the actors. Because they are all playing very different characters that are reacting in very different ways that feel very realistic, like humans would react. I like that not everybody reacts the same. People react differently. And how they're reacting changes over the course of the story with how events are progressing and how other people are pushing them in other directions. You know, I found that one couple really irksome. The married couple with the son, the actual married couple, the mom, the dad, I just wanted to reach out and slap them, which is a credit to the actors because they did a good job of portraying that. Of course, I love Professor Hobbs because I always love me some David Troughton. It's always nice to have a Troughton in some Doctor Who. I like the girl playing his assistant. I absolutely love the fact that she comes across as much more intelligent than the professor. The professor kind of acts like he's the smart one, and I'm sure he's intelligent in his own way, but he comes across as totally set in his ways, and the idea of something that doesn't conform to what he believes being totally foreign to him. He very much has a tunnel vision of what he believes, and anything that's not in that vision, there's no way life could exist out there. Well, life as you know it might could. Whereas in the younger one is much more open-minded and also very intelligent. The son, I like how, he kind of bounces around, but he at least doesn't try to conform. He has his own thoughts on it. And then the actress playing Skye does a good job of playing Skye and then playing the creature, which I love the fact is never named. She does a really good performance. And then David Tennant himself is just phenomenal in this, his acting. I have issues with the Doctor in this we'll get to, but I love David Tennant in this. David Tennant is always phenomenal. He is so good in this. Watching him, I'll talk more about his acting later. The story itself, I have reassessed the story in the sense that I don't hate it. I don't think it's bad. I think it's mediocre. I think it's average. I think it's okay. It's like Destiny of the Daleks without being as fun, without being as rewatchable. Because I actually find Destiny of the Daleks to be very mediocre, but very rewatchable. I don't find this very rewatchable, but I find it very mediocre. It's very much the Dominators or the Androids of Tara, or Tara. I find it right there in the middle. I think it's a well-executed story, well-directed, but the actual script to me is just That's not going to describe it. It's just I find it very average. Part of the issues I still have with this story is issues I've had with the story for a long time. One of them is not enough of the Doctor and Donna together, because I love the Doctor and Donna. Donna's my favorite modern series companion, and David Tennant and Catherine Tate have such a good chemistry, and the 10th Doctor and Donna have such a good chemistry. I love when they're together, and we don't get that here. And so I hate that this episode is here, because it's replacing an episode we could have gotten with them together. Especially since this is toward the end of the season. I mean, this is pretty much a Doctor-centric episode, and then the next episode is Turn Left, which is a Donna-centric episode, and then it goes into the two-part finale, which is very much an ensemble, massive story. So we really never get more of just the Doctor and Donna having fun. Like the Unicorn and the Wasp, while it's kind of a filler episode, it's fun. It has such a rewatchability to me because it's just fun and exciting and silly and great, and I love the Doctor and Donna together. And then after it, we had the Library two-parter, which is great, even though the Doctor and Donna are separated for a good portion of it. They're still really good together. The door's made out of wood. Oh, it doesn't do wood! But then when you get into this, and it's an episode that we could have had. We could have had one more fun episode with the Doctor and Donna together. Even Partners in Crime is a really fun episode when they get reintroduced. I love Partners in Crime. It's so much fun. It's silly, but it's fun. We could have had another episode like that, but because of Midnight being here, we don't get that episode. So part of my grudge against Midnight is for the episode that I don't get because Midnight exists. Because I want more of the Doctor and Donna together. It's one of the reasons why I always wished Midnight would have been like in Series 8. Because one, I think everything that happens to the Doctor here would have been a better fit for Capaldi. Especially Series 8 Capaldi, very grumpy, grown, I'm the Doctor, I'm the boss, I'm in control. With him losing control would have been great for him. Plus it would have been an episode of Series 8 where I could have done without Clara for the most part, and I would have loved that. An episode, a Clara-less episode? Yes, please. Moving on to that, the other biggest issue with this story, when you break it down to, is that the Doctor fails utterly. One of the biggest failures the Doctor has had in Doctor Who. He fails totally here. One of my biggest complaints about the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, I've said this many times if you watch my channel, is that she doesn't feel like she's in control. She always feels like she's catching up, especially from the end of Spyfall on all the way through Flux. She always feels on the back foot. She doesn't feel in control of the situation, which is why I was pleasantly surprised in Eve of the Daleks when she feels very in control of that situation. I very much enjoyed Eve of the Daleks. I like the Doctor to be in control and be 2 or 3 steps ahead. This is the perfect example of the 10th Doctor not being in control of the situation. And he cannot, and it bites him so much in the story. He's trying to maintain control. He's trying to figure it out because he is trying to deal with something that he totally doesn't understand. And much like us as the audience don't understand, he's trying to figure it out just like we are. Part of that is his failure to control the group and to keep them under control. When he has all of them in the back and he's trying to talk to them, they turn on him. Part of this is his own fault because one of the 10th Doctor's character flaws is his kind of arrogance. He does it in a very passive way, but he very much knows he's the smartest man in the room. I'd say you were a genius, but I'm in the room, like he says in the Cyberman 2-parter. And don't get me wrong, he very much has that attitude of, I'm the smartest man in the room and y'all all need to listen to me. And he's right! To be fair, he's perfectly right. He is the smartest man in the room, and they all do need to listen to him. But you can't say that to people or just really come off that overbearing to people, because that pisses people off. People get annoyed by that. You know, it's like some of these sports athletes, you know, who are so cocky about how talented they are. They think they're better than everybody else. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these NFL players are way better than I am at playing football. That's why they play in the NFL. But they don't have to be pricks about it. People don't like them being arrogant about it. It's the same thing here. While the doctor is the smartest man in the room, the way he has acted up to this point, you know, it's left a bad taste in some of their mouth. And when one or two of them starts pointing it out, the others are like, we don't even know your name. John Smith, what kind of name is that? Who are you exactly? What do you mean, talking to us like we're human? Are you not human? He fails to maintain that. And I love the fact that some of his own character flaws that bite him here, whereas other doctors might have come out of that situation better. Like, could you imagine the second doctor there? Oh, wait, the second doctor and Professor Hobbs probably would have got on well, I like to think. Now, naturally, the third doctor would have also come across as overbearing. And the first doctor, I'm not going to lie, if Hartnell had been there, they'd have thrown him out the door. Where did you catch the... They would have thrown Hartnell out the door. And probably Capaldi, too. And then there's the part where, you know, he gets, I won't say taken over, but when the entity gains control over him, I should say, to where he can't move and he's repeating her. The doctor fails there as well, because while he's been trying to figure it out, he fails to figure it out in time. He knows there's a next step in the evolution. He doesn't know what it is. Now, I love the fact that the doctor is defending the entity when they're all talking about throwing it out, and I love that mob mentality. Let me say, when this episode first aired in 2008, I didn't find that very believable. I'm like, man, these people wouldn't just turn into that mob mentality of throw it out. That's a bit extreme. Now that I am older and I have seen some of the events that have happened in the world since, yes, I believe people would act like that. Sadly enough, my opinion of humanity has diminished a bit. And yeah, I could see something like that actually happening and people just chunking. So yes, I find that very believable now. But I love how the doctor's like, nobody's throwing anybody outside. That is a new life form. We have a duty to, you know, I like that. That's very the doctor. I will admit that. That is the doctor acting like the doctor. I am on board for that. But seeing him get possessed, he has failed. He is about to get thrown out. And the only reason that the doctor doesn't die and everybody doesn't get screwed is because the hostess saves the day. She has a change of heart, because she was also one of the ones vying for throwing her out. But she realizes what's going on when the entity starts speaking in French, saying Allons-y like Tennant had earlier in the story. And she figures out what's going on, and she sacrifices herself to save everyone. Very noble. But that's the only reason the day is saved. The doctor fails utterly here. Completely, and is only saved because someone else realized what was going on and gave their own life to save everybody, including the doctor. That bothers me, and this is one of the reasons why Midnight frustrates me, is because so many people praise this episode for being so good. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind the fact that people like Midnight. That's fine. I mind the fact that some people, like on YouTube and stuff, they rate it as Tennant's best episode, or the best episode of Modern Who, or the best episode of David Tennant's run. And I'm not going to lie, my knee-jerk reaction to that is always, are you fucking stupid? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that anyone who thinks that is stupid. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and their opinion is just as valid as my opinion. I'm not saying that's what I actually think. I'm saying my knee-jerk reaction to that is just immediately, are you stupid, or are you kidding me? Are you serious? It's always something to that effect, because I can never wrap my brain around the idea why people think, you know, the greatest David Tennant episode is the one where he fails. He utterly fails. The doctor fails. Let's go watch some classic Who. How often do you see the doctor utterly fail like that? You're not going to see that very often in classic Who. The doctor is the one who saves the day. Literally, a guest character has to sacrifice himself to save the doctor, or else they all would have been boned, completely boned. There is not a single episode where Tennant just fails this hard. And no, Waters of Mars is not as bad, because at least while he turns into Time Lord Victorious briefly, he still saves people, and he realizes his mistake very quickly. This is a harder failure for me. He utterly fails. He fails to maintain control of the group. He fails to maintain control of himself. And he only gets saved through happenstance because of the actions of someone else. The Doctor fails here. I cannot wrap my head around why people think this is the 10th Doctor's best episode. Because here's my thing. If you think this is a great episode, if this is your favorite 10th Doctor episode, the one where he fails, oh, do I have an era of Doctor Who that is for you. It's called the Chris Chibnall era, and you are gonna love it. It is a showcase of the Doctor just failing and not being good at being the Doctor. You are going to have a field day with it. Get ready to watch Series 11 if you hadn't. When you get ready to watch, oh my God, you are going to have so many orgasms watching this season. You are going to love it. When you sit down to watch it, get you a little box of Kleenex and set it right here, because you're going to need, you know what? Get 2 boxes. 2 boxes of Kleenex, set them right here. You are going to need them, and you're going to need them from that, and then you're going to get into Series 12, and you're going to get to the season finale, The Timeless Children, and you are going to watch it like 70,000 times, because it is going to be your favorite episode of the Chris Chibnall era. You're going to find it so amazing. The Doctor fails so hard in it. Oh, you're going to love it. You are going to love it. And then you're going to get into Flux, and that's going to be perfect for you. Because Flux is just Midnight if Midnight was done as a whole series, or more of a mini-series. Because you know what Flux is? Flux is a story that has fantastic visuals, great directing. A lot of the directing in Flux is done really well. It looks visually stunning. You know what else it has? A mediocre story. Sound familiar? A very mediocre, average, meh story. That's what Flux is in a nutshell. Looks great, story's meh. Basically, if you take Flux, Doctor Who Flux, and condense it down to 1 episode, you have Midnight. Visually impressive, mediocre, meh story. Here's another thing. When you do watch Flux, make sure you go to the supermarket and buy lots of toilet paper, because you're going to love it. Get lots and lots of toilet paper. Get rows and carts of toilet paper. Get so much toilet paper, people think you are going to roll a house. They think you're going to roll a row of houses. They think you're going to roll a fleet of houses. They think you're going to New York City to roll the whole city. You're going to need all that toilet paper. You're going to be loving Flux so much, as it's just Midnight in series form. So, if you haven't seen Flux yet and you love Midnight, you are going to love Doctor Who Flux, because Flux really is just a long version of Midnight. A story where you're like, at least it looks nice. It's not bad. Flux isn't bad. Flux is not bad. It is watchable. And it looks great. Midnight. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not crap. Not bad at all. Mediocre. Worth watching once every 5 or 6 years. Looks impressive. Great directing. Wonderful acting. Moving along. Let's get back to the good part. The good things about Flux. I do love the scene at the end when they're sitting there right before they get rescued, and Tennant asks what the hostess' name was. Because I hadn't realized that either. I had not thought of that she had never mentioned her name. She was just the hostess. And that's interesting, because that does reflect real life, where a lot of people in the service industry, even if it's people you see fairly regularly, it might click in your head one day, I don't even know this person's name. I've worked in the service industry. I've had people, I've seen you several times. What is your name? And I'm sure a lot of you have as well. Or someone you see, maybe, that's in the service industry, and you see them regularly, and maybe after the 40th time, you're like, what is your name? I see you so often. So that really rings true in the real life of not knowing someone like the hostess's name, because you just probably don't think to ask. And it was very interesting to me that nobody knew. That was a really nice scene. I really liked that. And I do love the ending of it when he's talking to Donna about it, and when she's talking about the entity and what they're going to do, and he's talking about shutting the corporation down and moving it off planet, because you don't know whether that thing survived or not, and he's talking about just letting this planet drift in silence by itself forever. I love that. Whether the corporation would actually go or not. I mean, if it's run by the American business group, it'll probably just do like that episode of South Park when Bart fell down the well. We'll make sure nobody falls down that well ever again, and they just put up a sign that says caution well and goes, that should do it. I can see the American business company doing that instead of spending all the money to move off-world, because, think of all the money they'd lose. They'll put up a sign over there that just says, caution, danger. That should do it. Yeah. I do love the creature. Let me say one thing I absolutely love about Midnight. One thing this episode does really, really well is I love the fact it keeps the entity vague. That's why I call it the entity, because you don't know what it is. There's no other real name for it. I love that it keeps it vague. I've talked before about I like that. It adds to it. When you try to explain a backstory, sometimes you ruin something. You look at something like Michael Myers. I don't need to know why Michael Myers is the way he is. The fact that Michael Myers is the way he is what makes him interesting. The fact this dude's like a Terminator, but he's real. It's one of the things he's more interesting in some ways than Freddy Krueger or Jason, because he's just a dude. A crazy, creepy dude that can take a beating and keep on coming somehow. There's nothing supernatural about him, at least originally. That's why I hated that one Halloween movie, The Curse of Michael Myers, despite the fact it's Donald Pleasance's last trip in the role, because I like Donald Pleasance. And that's sadly his final movie is Dr. Loomis. But the movie tries to explain why Michael's the way he is. And this weird voodoo cult, it's so stupid. It's incredibly stupid and it's unnecessary. You know, Jason, I don't need to know why Jason exists. I don't need his backstory. It's the same reason I hate the Timeless Children. It's the same reason I hated the Cartmel Master Plan. I don't need to know the Doctor's origin story. You know, it's fine the way it is. I don't need origin stories for a lot of these characters, villains and heroes, to make them interesting to me. Part of that just when you take away from the mystery, it makes it less interesting. I mean, was there anybody who really had the Timeless Children happen and they're like, oh, it's opened my eyes. I'm so much more of a fan of this character now. Yay! Really? Especially old school fans? Really? You know, most of us, we didn't care. We're happy to just pop in with an unearthly child, go from there, and we're content with that. We're happy. I don't need to know what the Doctor did when they were 2. It doesn't, you get what I mean? And it's the same thing here. I like the fact that they never explain the entity. I mean, you kind of get the impression that maybe it was exiled on this planet, that it had a corporeal form once, that somehow when its corporeal form was destroyed, it was just sat there, and it had been there a long time in the dark, in the cold, waiting. I love that. That's creepy. So, you know, you get those brief little things when the entity is talking through Sky without saying what it is. You don't know if it survived it or not and whether it's still out there. I love the fact, you know, and they never need to revisit it. That's something I never need a sequel to Midnight because I'm worried they just ruin the entity. I find the entity fascinating because, again, we don't understand quite how it works. I mean, we see what we see in the episode, but we don't know its motivations. We can tell it's happy to be alive. One of the reasons it gets found out is because it's taking so much joy at having flesh and sensations that it gets a little too overexcited, so the hostess is able to figure out what's going on because the entity is so caught up in having a body again. But I don't know. I find the entity the most fascinating part of this episode. Besides the acting. The acting's really good, but the entity just as a concept fascinates me. And I love the fact everything's left so vague about it. That really works for me. So yeah, I think the story looks visually impressive. I think it's a mediocre script, but I think it's not a story I'm going to go back and rewatch anytime soon. You know, I'd rather go back and rewatch Horns of Nimon, The Pirate Planet, Destiny of the Daleks. Because while these stories might not be as objectively good, they're certainly a lot more interesting to watch for me. They're certainly a lot more fun to watch for me. But that's just me. That's completely subjective. The story, again, is kind of like the God Complex, actually. Whereas I've always said the God Complex is a crap script with really good execution. I love the directing in the God Complex. It looks visually very impressive. The script is just trash. This is kind of the mediocre version of that. I think the directing is top notch. I love the directing. I think it's well put together, well cast. I just think the script is meh at best. So it's kind of the mediocre version of the God Complex. So that is my current thoughts on Midnight. I would like to know what you think of this video and what you think of Midnight, and if anything I have said has resonated with you, or at least made you stop for a second and go, I would like to know what you think, so comment down below and let me know. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do, helping me import all this wonderful stuff from the UK I import because I do live in the States, There is a link to my Patreon down in the description below. I want to give a special shout out to my top tier patron, the Fifth Doctor. I certainly appreciate that. I certainly appreciate him. And I want to give a shout out to all of my other patrons as well, and to all of my subscribers as well. If you are interested in my Patreon, there should be a couple exclusive polls up right now just for my Patreons to vote on. If you would like early access to some videos do go live earlier. Not often, just every now and then I'll do one earlier on there. And they do get exclusive videos as well. So check that out if you're interested. There's several different tiers to choose from. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.